Have you ever felt the weight of a place, a relationship, or a situation that you know deep down no longer serves you? That subtle unease that begins as a whisper in the back of your mind and, over time, grows into a silent scream. It's the feeling of being trapped, not by physical chains, but by the invisible ties of obligation, fear, guilt, or simply habit. And in the midst of this discomfort, the question arises, how do I leave? How do I close this chapter? So often we imagine that a departure must be a grand event, a dramatic act, a door slammed shut to mark the end. But what if the greatest demonstration of strength, of maturity, and of self-worth was the exact opposite? What if true wisdom lies in learning to leave without making a sound? Think about that for a moment. The silent exit. Not as an act of cowardice or escape, but as a conscious strategy of self-preservation. It is the art of withdrawing with dignity, of honoring what was, while acknowledging with unshakable clarity that your time there is over. It's choosing peace over conflict, discretion over drama, self-preservation over the need to prove a point. This isn't a journey about abandoning your responsibilities, but about reclaiming responsibility for your own life, your own peace, and your own future. Over the next few minutes, we will dive deep into this idea. We'll explore what it means, in practice, to leave without a sound from jobs that drain our souls, from friendships that have turned toxic, from relationships that no longer nourish us, and even from old versions of ourselves that no longer represent who we are. We will look to ancient wisdom, especially Stoicism, for the tools to cultivate this inner strength, this ability to make firm decisions with a serene heart. Are you ready to discover the power that resides in the silence of a conscious departure? If you are seeking more wisdom to handle life's transitions, if you wish to cultivate the emotional strength to end cycles with dignity and begin new chapters with clarity, this content was made for you. So, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because with every video, we discover together how to navigate the complexity of existence with more balance and purpose. The deeper meaning of leaving without a sound. When we talk about leaving without a sound, the first image that might come to mind is of someone who disappears without explanation, who practices the infamous ghosting. But what I'm proposing here is something much deeper and more intentional. It's not about an absence of communication, but an absence of drama. It is the difference between a wildfire that destroys everything in its path and the quiet changing of the seasons, where the leaves fall so the tree can survive the winter and blossom again in the spring. Leaving without a sound is, at its core, an act of profound self-respect. It means you value yourself enough to not need an audience for your departure. You don't need others to validate your decision, to understand your reasons, or to agree with you. Your inner conviction is the only court that matters. I remember a phase in my life when I believed every ending required a big argument, a catharsis, a moment of setting the record straight. I thought that was being honest. But over time I realized that, most of the time, this need for confrontation was just my ego screaming for validation, wanting to have the last word, wanting to walk away as the right one in the story. The truth is, when a chapter truly ends for us, the need to prove anything to the other person vanishes. Peace becomes more valuable than being right. Stoicism offers us a powerful lens to understand this. Epictetus said that our chief task in life is to separate what is within our control from what is not. When we decide to leave a situation, our control lies in the decision itself, in the way we communicate it, and in the dignity with which we carry ourselves. The other person's reaction, their interpretation, the drama they might try to create, all of that is outside of our control. To make a sound, in this context, is to desperately try to control the uncontrollable. It's to fight against another's perception, to get entangled in a battle of narratives. The silent exit, on the other hand, is the absolute focus on what belongs to us, our action and our inner peace. It is an act of personal sovereignty. This skill is not innate, it is cultivated. It requires immense clarity about your own values and boundaries. It requires the courage to disappoint others in order not to disappoint yourself. And, above all, it requires the understanding that silence is often the most powerful response. It offers no surface for conflict to cling to. It creates a clean space, a vacuum where drama cannot breathe. It is your quiet declaration that your energy is far too precious to be wasted on battles that lead nowhere. Identifying the signs. When the soul asks for silence. Before we can learn to leave, we must learn to listen. To listen to that inner call that tells us something is wrong. We often ignore these signs out of fear of the consequences, misplaced loyalty, or pure inertia. But the body and mind do not lie. They send us constant alerts, and recognizing them is the first step toward liberation. Think about your workplace. What are the signs that it's time to plan your silent exit? Perhaps it's that feeling of dread on Sunday night, an anxiety that has no name but settles in your chest. Maybe it's the lack of alignment between your values and the company's, an ethical conflict that erodes your integrity day by day. I was once in a job where, externally, everything seemed perfect. Good salary, status, recognition. But inside I felt a growing emptiness. Every task felt meaningless, every meeting a waste of time. My body started to give me signals. Insomnia, constant headaches. It was my soul crying for help, telling me that this place, however good it looked on paper, was slowly killing me. The noise wasn't external, it was internal. The decision to leave began to form there, not in an explosion of anger, but in a quiet, painful realization. This is no longer my place. Now think about your friendships. A true friendship should be a safe harbor, a place of nourishment and mutual support. But sometimes over time the dynamics change. That friend who once lifted you up now might only contact you to complain, to drain your energy, or worse, to subtly diminish you with criticisms disguised as jokes. The sign here is how you feel after you see this person. Do you feel light, energized, inspired? Or do you feel drained, heavy, smaller than before? Pay attention to this emotional barometer. It is your most faithful guide. A friendship that consistently brings you down is no longer a friendship. It's a burden. And the exit here rarely requires a confrontation. It can be a gradual, respectful withdrawal, a leaving without a sound that protects your energy. In romantic relationships, the signs can be even more complex, as they are wrapped in a web of feelings, history, and hope. But they exist. It's the absence of joy, the communication that boils down to logistics and arguments, the feeling of walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. It's when you realize that the person beside you no longer sees you, or worse, that you no longer recognize yourself when you're with them. The time to leave isn't marked by a single fight, but by the pattern of disconnection, by the slow death of intimacy and respect. Acknowledging this is painful, but it is an act of self-love. It's understanding that to remain in a dead relationship is an act of violence against yourself and the other person. The silent departure here doesn't mean disappearing, but rather having the final conversation with clarity, firmness, and without the need to blame or destroy. It is to say, I honor you, I honor our history, but my path now leads in another direction. Recognizing these signs is an exercise in self-observation. It's like becoming a detective in your own life, investigating the sources of your discomfort. Write down your feelings, observe the patterns. The clarity that emerges from this process is the foundation upon which you will build your dignified and silent exit. The art of the gradual withdrawal, the conscious fade out. Once the signs have been recognized and the internal decision has been made, the practical question arises: how do you execute the departure? Not every situation allows for or requires an abrupt exit. In many cases, especially in long-term relationships or complex environments, the wisest strategy is that of the gradual withdrawal, what we can call the conscious fade-out. This is particularly useful in friendships that have become one-sided or draining. Instead of a formal declaration of breakup, which can create unnecessary drama and resentment, the fade-out is a process of energetic realignment. It starts with small changes. You stop being the person who always initiates contact. You respond to messages politely, but perhaps a little more slowly with less enthusiasm. You become genuinely busier, not with fake excuses, but by filling your life with activities and people that nourish you. You politely decline invitations without giving long-winded justifications. Thank you for the invitation, but I won't be able to make it. Period. What happens in this process is a natural recalibration. The other person, feeling the shift in your availability and energy, may either drift away naturally or they may confront you. If a confrontation comes, you can respond with honesty but without aggression. Something like, I've realized our lives are in different places right now, and I'm focusing my energy on other areas. I wish you all the best. It's a response that sets a clear boundary but does so from a place of peace, not war. This method honors the history you shared but acknowledges that the present requires a new configuration. It's leaving without burning the bridge but gently dismantling it, plank by plank. In the workplace, a gradual withdrawal is a matter of strategy and professionalism. If you've decided you're going to leave but don't have another job lined up yet or need time to plan, the process starts internally. You emotionally detach. You stop volunteering for new long-term projects. You start delegating more, training your colleagues, and organizing your files so that your future absence will be as non-disruptive as possible. You fulfill your duties with excellence, but you cease the extra emotional investment. You become an impeccable professional, but no longer a family member of the company. This internal shift in posture prepares you for the moment of the formal exit. When you hand in your resignation, there won't be a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Your decision will already be solidified. You can conduct the transition process calmly and professionally, leaving the door open. I remember when I left my last corporate job. I spent months preparing internally, detaching from the daily squabbles and focusing on leaving a legacy of organization. When I announced my departure, my boss was surprised, but there was no drama. There was respect. I walked out the front door, silently, leaving behind a job well done, not a trail of conflict. This is the essence of the gradual withdrawal. It's an internal preparation that manifests externally as serenity and control. Stoicism as a tool, the inner fortress for departure. The Stoic philosophy is, perhaps, the most powerful ally on the journey of learning to leave without a sound. It doesn't offer us easy fixes, but it gives us the tools to build an unshakable inner fortress, from which we can make our decisions with clarity and courage. The first and most fundamental tool is the dichotomy of control, as I've already mentioned. Let's go deeper. Imagine you need to end a relationship. Anxiety arises because you start thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if they cry? What if they get angry? What if they accuse me of terrible things? What if they spread lies about me? The Stoic would say, stop, breathe, and draw a circle. Inside that circle, place everything you control. Your decision to end it, the words you choose to communicate that decision, your calmness, your firmness, your compassion. Outside the circle, place everything you do not control. The other person's reaction, their feelings, the words they will say, the actions they will take. Your only job is to act with virtue and wisdom within your circle. The rest is indifferent. The constant practice of separating what is yours from what is not removes 90% of the anxiety from any departure. You are not going into a battle, you are simply executing an action that is within your control. The second tool is premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This might sound pessimistic, but it's the opposite. It's a visualization technique to strengthen yourself. Before the difficult conversation, sit in silence and imagine the worst-case scenario. Imagine the anger, the tears, the accusations. Feel the emotion this causes you. And then ask yourself, and then what? Would I survive this? The answer is almost always yes. By facing the worst-case scenario in your mind, you desensitize yourself to it. You prepare for it. If the worst happens, it won't be a surprise. You've already been there in your imagination and you know you can handle it. And most of the time, reality is far less dramatic than our catastrophic imagination. As Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Premeditation is the antidote to this anticipatory suffering. The third tool is the view from above. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly in his meditations. When you feel overwhelmed by the drama of a situation, by the weight of a decision, mentally pull back. Imagine yourself floating out of your body, upwards, seeing your city, your country, planet Earth as a small blue marble in the vast silent cosmos. From this vantage point, how big is your problem? How significant is this drama? This perspective doesn't diminish the importance of your feelings, but it puts the problem in its proper place. It reminds you that life is so much bigger than this moment, this relationship, this job. This gives you the courage to do what needs to be done, knowing that it is just one small step on your long journey. Using these Stoic tools doesn't make you cold or unfeeling. On the contrary, it makes you stable. And it is from this stability that you can act with true compassion and clarity. You can be the rock in the middle of the storm, the calm presence that ends a chapter with the dignity it deserves, out of respect for yourself and, paradoxically, out of respect for the other. The aftermath, navigating the void and rebuilding the path. Leaving without a sound is only half the equation. The other half, equally important, is knowing what to do with the silence that follows. Every departure, no matter how necessary and liberating, creates a vacuum. The space once occupied by that person, that job, that habit, is now empty. And nature, as we know, abhors a vacuum. It is in this moment that there lies both great danger and great opportunity. The danger is that of selective nostalgia and regret. In moments of loneliness, our mind has a treacherous tendency to romanticize the past. We remember only the good times of that relationship, conveniently forgetting the nights of tears and anguish. We remember the salary and benefits of that job, forgetting the sense of existential emptiness it caused us. This is the time to anchor yourself in your decision. I often recommend keeping a truth document. Before you leave, write down in detail why you are making this decision. List all the negative feelings, all the unsustainable situations, all the reasons that brought you to this point. When nostalgia comes knocking, read that document. It will be your sober, honest reminder of why your departure was an act of self-preservation, not a whim. The opportunity, on the other hand, is to fill that void consciously and intentionally. This is your fertile ground, your blank canvas. What will you plant here? Instead of rushing into a new relationship or a new job to fill the hole, allow yourself to inhabit the silence for a while. Rediscover yourself. Who are you without that person? Who are you outside of that professional environment? What are your interests, your passions, your dreams that were put on the back burner? Use this time to invest in yourself. This is what I did after leaving that draining job. With the time and energy I gained, I began to explore philosophy, to read more, to walk in nature, to write. These activities, which had seemed like luxuries before, became the foundations of my new identity. They filled the void not with noise but with purpose. Start a new hobby. Go back to school. Reconnect with old, healthy friends. Take care of your body, your mind, and your spirit. This process of rebuilding is the true final act of the silent departure. It is the proof that you didn't just leave from something, but that you are moving toward something better. It is your affirmation that your happiness and well-being do not depend on an external circumstance but are built from the inside out. By filling the void with self-knowledge and growth, you ensure that you will not repeat the same patterns in the future. You raise your standard for what you accept into your life. The silent departure, then, is not just an end, but the most beautiful and promising of beginnings. When silence becomes inspiration. It may seem counterintuitive, but a silent, dignified departure often speaks louder than any noisy protest. In a world obsessed with drama, with public callouts, and with mic-drop moments, choosing discretion and integrity is a revolutionary act. And, without you even realizing it, your attitude can become a source of inspiration for others. Think of that coworker who was always complaining about the environment, who was in a constant war with management, but never took action. Now think of that other coworker who, realizing the place was no longer for them, simply prepared, found a better opportunity, and left with elegance, thanking everyone for the journey. Which of the two do you admire more? Which one demonstrated true strength and control over their own life? Your silent exit from a toxic environment could be the catalyst a colleague needs to start planning their own liberation. They see in you that it's possible, that it doesn't have to be a war, that it can be a strategic move toward a better life. The same thing happens in personal relationships. When you set a firm but gentle boundary with a family member or friend, you are not just protecting yourself. You are, perhaps, teaching that person how boundaries work. You are showing other friends in the same circle that it's acceptable to prioritize one's own mental health. Your quiet courage gives others permission to be courageous too. True influence comes not from the noise we make, but from the congruence between what we believe and how we act. When you act with the dignity of someone who values themselves, who chooses peace over being right, you emit a frequency. The people around you feel that frequency. Some may not understand, they may even call you cold or distant. But those who are on the same search for growth and maturity will recognize the strength in your silence. They will see in you an example of how to navigate the complexities of life without getting lost in the chaos. In the end, learning to leave without a sound is a gift you give to yourself. But like every act of wisdom, its effects ripple outward, touching the lives of others in ways you may never know. It is proof that the most profound change often doesn't need a spotlight. It happens in the silent sanctuary of the heart, in a firm decision to honor one's own journey, to choose the path of peace, and to walk toward the future, not with the explosion of a slammed door, but with the serenity of someone who knows exactly where they are going. So, I ask you, what situation, what relationship, what version of yourself do you need to leave today? And how can you begin to plan that departure, not with anger and resentment, but with the wisdom, clarity, and dignity of someone who has learned the power of leaving without a sound? The journey is yours, and the peace you seek is on the other side of a quiet decision. Remember that every step, no matter how small, in the direction of your authenticity is a victory. What will you do today to honor that call from your soul? Share your reflections in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and learn together to walk our paths with ever-increasing wisdom.